Hey, how's it going, everyone? Just want to do a few lessons that I thought of. I want to continue one that I did before on a righteous mindset in the end times, and just use a verse to support this notion. Because this is something that I'm wrestling with, knowing that, believing more and more that we're in the end times, but struggling because there are many verses that allude to whenever the end times is. There will obviously be a lot of the signs that we suspect are happening right now: wars, rumors of war, uproars of the people, earthquake in diverse places. Um, Inflation is prophesied in Revelation. The deterioration in the value of money. Um, just boasters. Pride. People will be lovers of themselves. We've all, to some degree, become that, whether willfully or not. Um, and all these things, it's a perfect storm, literally. And the only thing that's missing, and flat Earth is a major fulfillment of, in my opinion, the enemy, Satan, deceiving the entire world. And then, so the RFID chip is the last thing. But so there's a lot of calamity, that is still, slated for the world and all that. And it's becoming more and more obvious to those, even if they're not really paying attention. But, so in my opinion, it's a very difficult position to be in because we don't know what amount of that we will get, and just my mindset. And I don't know if I recommend this for everybody, and I throw this out there for people who might be thinking like myself, and I have a feeling it's not that many people. But I'm not um, doing what I can to scrounge to stay deeper into this time period, whether it's the end times or not. Like, I have just in my mind, and I've said this many times, I believe that I have to sin just to stay alive. To support myself, I have to work for a corporation which I feel are the tentacles of the beast system. And you don't have to be a conspiracy theorist to know that the corporations now are evil. Religious and non-religious people will support that notion with many examples, and you can just look on Reddit if you want real life examples. So that alone, I don't feel comfortable with. I'm supporting the very system that is entrusted to basically kind of annihilate the whole world, or microchip them and control them. They're every move, pretty much everything. So that's not something that gets me excited to jump out of bed. So, and then, but that I've sort of dealt with, and I work currently. I don't know how much longer it will last. I'm on the order of days, weeks, month, not years, just for my own threshold, that I can withstand, that I can stomach. But um, I'm more bitter, I think, just to the fact that all the schooling has been a complete joke. I think that's the thing that I've kind of realized is been the hardest thing for me to swallow. And I think I'm very thankful that I know now that the Earth is flat and know the truth and all that, and can share it as much as I can. But it's again, to me, this system has been churning and been operating on my mind and my life, since I was born. And so I'm a sore loser, basically. I don't like the fact that I've spent 30 some years of my life getting two master's degrees and a CPA, and a lot of it has just been absolutely overkill and unnecessary. And in fact, a majority of it, I don't need that much to survive. And in fact, studying as much as I have has actually hurt me now, because the corporate world now is promoting sort of middle of the road, unintelligent, no creative thought, just go along with the crowd. So the education has become even actually like a liability in some cases. So the very thing that I've sown a majority of my life into, hours and hours, a great percentage of my life, has actually been being used to destroy my mind and my creativity, and now actually be almost like a weight, a burden to carry around, navigating through corporate America. So to me, it just doesn't make sense. Like, this whole thing is basically me working daily to have someone literally destroy brain cells on a daily basis, and if you believe the mind or the brain or our experience or our thoughts is a thing that translates on after this life, I'm essentially, corrupting the only thing that will carry on. So I just as a optimization, as a logical thing, as a, with the Bible as support, I don't see continuing to live and politicking to stay alive in a place that is corrupting me as a wise thing to do. In fact, I think it's evil. So, I'm at this point where, I'm struggling to decide, what is the right thing to do, because, I also don't think it's righteous to sit and I've done this for a while, but I'm slowly stopping now. And I feel like it's the right thing to do. And part of what this lesson's about is like to wish, the market crash, like war, bad things on other people, and even these like teachers that I've had throughout my life, I was initially very bitter that I've been duped basically, by them. It's not their fault. They were put up to it, but God did it. But I had all these kind of, emotions, like, I was like, oh, I hope all these quote unquote godless people, just get what they deserve and all this. And then, so, you're kind of hoping for calamity. But I've realized that kind of a mindset to me is kind of more pathetic than what I was doing before, and just getting duped, and just being brainwashed, walking around as a zombie. Like, I see a lot more virtue in that. And both to me are disgusting, based on what I just said. The first, getting duped, is enough for me to not want to live. So I'm not promoting that or saying that it's like, anything to be proud of. But I see them as both as equally bad, like as both equally a waste of time. And so the verse that I wanted to talk about, John chapter 9, starts with, "And as Jesus passed by, he saw a man which was blind from his birth. And his disciples asked him, saying, Master, who did sin, this man or his parents, that he was born blind?" A very good question. To me, very humble for them to ask this, to be curious, to want to know why. Jesus answered, "Neither has this man sinned nor his parents, but that the works of God should be manifest in him." So this is an amazing thing. The saying that we always hear in mainstream Christian circles is, don't judge. And this to me is a very strong point, that you're allowed to ask. You're allowed to be curious. And I don't think Jesus was angry about the question. But, it's we don't get the tone, the subtleties, but I can just assume that, the question made sense. It's good that they asked. It's not just like ignoring him, which would be bad. These are people that are close to God. This is a very special spirit, that's on the earth, and he's privy to all things, most things. So, good question, and then so he basically comes back saying, he's saying in other words, that's too simple. What you're asking, it's more than that. And so he goes on and actually heals this individual, and then that individual gives his testimony, before the religious leader. So you can see even during in that time, there was a very, immediate opposition to truth, righteousness, healing, and all that kind of stuff. Now, there's no real opposition, because there's very little truth in the world. It's just the lies are everywhere. So, there's little flickers of light here and there in the world, but for the most part, the earth right now at this point is in complete darkness, in my opinion. I haven't traveled the entire world, so I can't say that with proof, but just from what I can see and the interconnectivity of the internet, you can just see there's very, very little flickers of light. And to me, that's the remnant that God will rescue. And so here it's much more obvious. This was a major event that, the controlled opposition, the left-hand side, needed to address and to squelch, for fear that this, could propagate this healing. But the important thing I wanted to talk about here is that, Jesus in general, when he answered things, he was very truthful, but he always alluded to the kingdom of heaven, and that he couldn't always answer everything in ways that we can understand that would give us comfort. Like, he didn't just say, oh no, he sinned and it was on this day and he did this, and then so God the Most High decided that, to pay for that he's going to be born blind. It wasn't. That's not what's happening. There's probably way too many things that are going on that could not be understood with a list. That's just my understanding and my interpretation of this, is that it could actually have been, something related to past lives, because we see verses that, allude to the fact that, there's reincarnation. So it could actually have been something that happened, in a prior incarnation. But, it could have, and one of the things it clearly was for this interaction to happen, for this man to experience blindness and then to experience being able to see, that transition, and then praising God, and then being a witness to Jesus Christ, and also, Jesus Christ displaying that he has the ability to turn, the blind and allow them to see. And so, and just the disciples being able to ask that question about God and learn something new was only facilitated by that blind person being there. So, there's that's even me being very overly simplistic, but we have the view, the benefit of looking in the rear view, and so we have at least that. The list would be at minimum that, because that's just from the verse. So, so this is my point, is that in mainstream Christian circles, I see people are very, very quick to say, we're God's people, we're gonna get rescued. It's us, and them, they're gonna get destroyed, and everybody outside of our circle, let them have it, let God loose on them or whatever. And so, in my opinion, this verse is one of the many examples to say that, we don't know. We have no idea why certain people are born blind. This could be, this person is physically blind. This could apply to now, where someone could be spiritually blind. But they could be changed, and transformed immediately. And there could also be people who, and we have verses where, Jesus says that, people have come into his presence saying that they've casted out, spirits in his name, and done works, but he says to them, I don't know you. So we have the antithesis of that, where like people who appear to be doing God's work are unacceptable to God. So there's enough uncertainty out there where, to me, in my opinion, the only thing that I can do that I feel is righteous, considering all these different verses, is to not wish evil on people, definitely not in an individual sense. I can't be excited about having somebody else undergo pain under no circumstances. And Jesus was the greatest example of that. Even on the cross, he was asking the Father to forgive those who did that to them, because they didn't know what they were doing. And to me, this is the same situation we have when all evil occurs. I remember I was going to tell this story in undergrad. We had a really hard professor, and we were defending our projects, and I just, this is like the evil part of me that has been there. And I feel like in many ways it's common in this world. It's like we all wanted to like go and sit in his, project review things, just so to see how much he would grill other people. It's like, that's like, to me, it's deeply satanic, and for me to go into another person defending their work and simply be curious about hearing, someone get carved up potentially, and have that be, something that would be interesting for me to see, is deeply evil, and it's like that guy, the Simon Cowell guy off of America's Got Talent or whatever that show is called, who just carves up people, and people like all of us, at that time, American Idol, like people are drawn to that, like hearing someone get ripped to shreds, and stuff. So, to me, that is evil. That is ultimately, God's, judgment. That is his way of reconciling the books, so to speak. That's him satisfying his own balancing act. And, we could get the short end of the stick, the long end of the stick. We could get, a full cup of it or none, or somewhere in between, and we don't know. And it's not righteous for me. Obviously, we can teach about prophecy, what is prophesied to happen, but we cannot say that um, we are somehow guaranteed to avoid that. You know, to whatever degree. You know, like so we could in many ways, if we do that in the wrong way, could be heaping more and more judgment over our own head, which is bad. So I try and avoid that. I know that you can just sense that the world, especially here in America, that we're close to like the famines and all that, because we just need the dollar to reverse course and the market to crash. And those are the last two things that are quote unquote strong in our economy. That's really it. We just have a dollar that's still used a lot, and then the market has been inflated. So that's the last thing, that's that anybody can hang their hat on. The unemployment rate's awful. People are going to work. They're zombies, and people aren't finding jobs and stuff. So, that to me is like, I can't say when, but it looks like it's going to happen. And so, there are tough times coming. So the point of this to me is that we can't be too simple, and just, assume that someone who's blind, whether it be physically or most importantly in this time spiritually, or if someone's homeless or whatever, that they are automatically outside of the fold of God, and that and just prime for judgment, and God's wrath. That is not the case, and we can never be someone who speculates like that, because we don't have the answers. We're not mentally capable of. We're barely able to keep our own life going, much less understand deeper aspects of this optimization that's going on that has infinite variables. And so, to me, the only way in my mind that I can reconcile this is that either I will basically in the next year or two, my life will fade out, and I'll kind of quietly leave this stage, however I do that, or there will be this so-called rapture, and either way, if the rapture happens on my watch, if I'm not taken, I get it. I'm not part of the fold. I will not be bitter, but I'm going shortly after. Like, there's no way that, once that is there, I mean, what other evidence is there that the Bible is true? I mean, people are disappearing. It doesn't happen, by physical means, So even the chip, you could still say it was just human ambition, and it's just happened to line up with biblical prophecy and stuff, and be a coincidence theorist. But I mean, if people are physically, like, energy is leaving their body and they're just laying there dead, I mean, that's pretty much it. If there's any validation needed, any confirmation needed that God exists, that is it. The spirit leaves the body and then goes back to the one who gave it, God. So that's kind of the situation that I'm in. I think it's important to look out for people who preach that they're somehow too good to experience this judgment, or they seem to think just by whatever that they understand God's plan, and that plan is not involving them receiving any of these judgments. And to me, that's too simple. We do not have that answer. And we should never assume that, because it's just, to be plain simple, it's just not true.